I was broke, while my husband left me in debt for his mistress. Then our son made him cry in public. I stood in the kitchen, still clutching a damp dish towel, when Drew walked out of the bedroom with a black suitcase stuffed to the brim. He didn't even look at me. Eyes glued to the floor, like it held the answers I didn't deserve. "Where are you going?" My voice came out hoarse, lower than usual, like my throat was trying to hold back what my heart already knew. He stopped in the hallway. His grip on the suitcase handle was so tight, his knuckles turned ghost white. "I can't stay anymore," he muttered. I knew. God, I knew! The late nights, the dodged eye contact, the scent of a perfume I didn't wear, clinging to his collar. I'd felt it coming, but knowing and watching him actually leave? Two very different kinds of pain. For who? I didn't yell, just asked. The words slid out of my mouth, like a sentence handed down from a judge. Drew's lips twitched. His eyes closed. He was never a good liar. "It's Lauren." I laughed. A dry, sharp bark that tore out of me before I could stop it. Lauren Kane, the intern, 25, maybe, blonde hair like she stepped out of a shampoo commercial. She'd only been at his firm 3 months, but I'd seen the way she looked at him, like he was a trophy just waiting for the right girl to claim it. And Drew? The man I'd loved for 12 years, the man I had a son with, was walking out for that look? "I figured," I said, holding my voice steady even as my insides caved in, "but I still hoped you wouldn't stoop that low." He turned away from me like my eyes burned his skin. "What about the house, Drew?" I asked, stepping out from behind the kitchen island. "What about the mortgage we co-signed? The bills? The family you're abandoning?" "I'll send money," he said quietly. "I'll contribute every month." A few $100 a month? After everything I carried on my back? The 12-hour ER shifts, the cooking, the cleaning, raising Ethan on my own, while he played fantasy finance king. My stomach twisted. I stepped in front of him. "You think a check covers that?" He had nothing to say. Just silence. Just that same coward stillness. "Then go," I whispered. My voice broke around the edges. "Take your suitcase. And your empty promises. And don't you ever look back." He opened the door, closed it so softly I almost thought I imagined the whole thing. But I didn't. He left. And I was still standing there, alone, with nothing but a pile of memories, and a son who hadn't woken up yet. 2 weeks after Drew left, I picked up my first night shift at St. Luke's on the east side of Denver. I'd always refused nights. I wanted to be home when Ethan came back from school, but when your husband bolts and leaves you with a mortgage, choices disappear real fast. Ethan was still asleep when I slipped out the door at 8 p.m. He hadn't said much since that night. No questions, no tears, just silence, like he was trying to hold it together for me. And that broke me more than anything. The hospital shift was 12 hours of chaos. Heart monitors screamed. Call bells wouldn't shut up. I ran from room to room, bandaging wounds, and giving meds like my sanity depended on it. Because it did. If I stopped moving, I'd fall apart. So I didn't. By the time I dragged myself home the next morning, Denver was blanketed in fog. I walked in expecting to find Ethan still curled up in bed. Instead, I found him sitting on the couch, clutching his old stuffed bear, eyes red, shoulders tense. "You stayed up all night?" I asked, trying not to cry. He nodded but didn't look at me. "I can't sleep when you're not here," I sat beside him, pulled him in tight. He didn't say a word, just held on. That little body, trembling against mine, was all I had left, and I swore, then and there, I wasn't going to fall apart. Even if I had to fake strength until it became real. The days blurred. 2 hours of sleep. Wake up. Get Ethan to school. Nap. Pack a sandwich. Back to the hospital. Rinse. Repeat. Every time I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Bags under my eyes. Chapped lips. My scrubs hung on me like they were made for someone else. Ethan changed, too. He stopped laughing, stopped asking questions. After school, he'd go straight to his room, close the door, and bury himself in books. "Dinner's almost ready, bud," I'd say. "Anything's fine," he'd reply, barely above a whisper. I was losing him, and I didn't know how to bring him back. Then one evening, as I was pulling on my scrubs, there was a knock at the door. It was Mrs. Hendricks, my neighbour, 60-something, always in cardigans, always pruning roses. She handed me a bag of homemade cookies. Her eyes softened when she saw me. "I noticed you haven't been out much," she said gently. "Figured it's been rough." That did it. The dam broke. My husband left, and some days I feel like I might leave too. She didn't say a word, just came in, made tea, moved around my kitchen like she'd done it 100 times. "I've been where you are," she said later, eyes distant. "My husband died when my son was 6. I worked nights too, and every time I left for work, I'd wonder if he was crying or sleeping. I get it." I looked at her like I was seeing her for the first time. "You don't need pity," she said. "You need help. Let me stay with Ethan while you work. Every night." That night, when I left for my shift, she was sitting on the couch reading Ethan a story. And I didn't cry from exhaustion. I cried because someone finally saw me. That Saturday, after a brutal double shift, I dragged myself home, half asleep, half dead inside. I figured I'd sneak into the kitchen, heat up leftover soup, and collapse on the couch. But Ethan was already awake, sitting at the dining table, his little laptop open, face lit, with a weird kind of excitement I hadn't seen in weeks. "You're up early," I said, eyebrows raised. He looked up at me, serious, way too serious for an 8-year-old. "Mom, I did something to help you." I froze. "Help me how?" "I sent something," he said. "Calm, too calm, from Dad's old laptop." My stomach dropped. "What did you send, Ethan?" He turned the screen toward me. There was this folder. It wasn't locked. It had spreadsheets, contracts, emails. I sent them to some people from his work. I thought, maybe they'd care. I sat down. My body went cold. "Who did you send them to?" "I googled some names with legal next to them," he said, voice trembling now. "And I used my name. My real one." I couldn't breathe. "Why, baby? Why would you do that?" He didn't cry, but his voice cracked. "I hate hearing you cry in the bathroom. I hate that you don't eat anymore. And he's out there with her, like nothing ever happened. I thought if he lost his job, he'd finally see what he did to us." My heart broke clean in two. "Ethan, sweetheart, I know you were trying to help, but this could ruin everything, for him, and maybe for you too." He stared at the table. "I just wanted you to be okay, Mom." I hugged him, tight. And all I could think was, my baby should never have carried this weight. I didn't know what Drew had on that laptop, but if any of it was shady, and now it had been leaked to legal teams, this could spiral. Fast. That night, after Ethan went to bed, I sat in the dark living room, staring at the wall. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. Sienna, a hoarse voice whispered. It's me. It's Drew. My body tensed. They fired me. There's an investigation. Lauren's gone. The minute I lost the paycheck, she disappeared. I said nothing. I didn't know who else to call, he said. I've lost everything. My voice came out flat. Then maybe now you know how it feels. I hung up. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt done. 2 days later, I was in line at the pharmacy when the email hit. Termination for ethical violations. From the legal department at Drew's firm. Cold. Sterile. Official. They weren't just firing him. They were opening an external audit. My hands shook so bad, I dropped the receipt. I rushed home. Ethan, I called. Come here. Now. He knew. I saw it on his face the second he walked in. That brave little front he'd been putting on cracked. I need you to tell me everything. Every file. Every email. Every person you sent it to. He hesitated, then reached under his pillow and pulled out a small notebook. He'd written it all down. Dates, times, email addresses, subject lines. I flipped through the pages, part horrified, part heartbroken. He didn't even know what he had done. Not fully, but damn it, he had done it for me. That night, my phone rang again. It was Drew. Sienna, please, he said. His voice was almost unrecognizable, raspy, panicked. I have no one left. Lauren's gone. My friends won't return my calls. My own family won't even look at me. I stayed silent. I keep thinking about you. And Ethan. Now he remembers Ethan? Where were you when Ethan sat up all night waiting for me? I snapped. Where were you when he clutched his stuffed bear because you weren't there to say goodnight? Drew's breath hitched. I know I messed up, but please, I just want a chance to fix it. No, I said, voice low and steady. You don't want a second chance. You want to erase the consequences. He went quiet. If this goes to court, I continued, hire a lawyer. Blame weak data security. But don't call me. Don't ask me to lie. I have one job now, protecting my son. And I hung up. Not out of rage, but because I had nothing left to give. That evening, after dinner, I called Ethan out to the back porch. The sun was melting into the Denver skyline, casting soft gold across the yard. He sat beside me, knees pulled up, hoodie sleeves covering his hands. Your dad lost his job, I said quietly, and there might be more consequences. Ethan didn't flinch. I know. He texted me yesterday. I turned, surprised. What did he say? That I ruined his career, he whispered, and that if I really loved him, I wouldn't have done it. A lump formed in my throat. I reached out and took his hand. You didn't ruin anything. You're a child who acted out of love. But Ethan, actions have consequences. And sometimes they hurt more than just the person who did wrong. His voice cracked. I didn't want him to go to jail. I just wanted him to see how bad he hurt you. I squeezed his hand tighter. I know, baby. I know. But we don't fix broken people by breaking ourselves. He looked down, ashamed. I just thought maybe if he lost something, he'd come back. I pulled him in close. Sweetheart, if someone walks out on their family, they've already decided what they value. Losing his job won't make him find his heart again. We sat there for a long time, listening to the wind rustle through the backyard trees. It was the first time since Drew left that Ethan leaned his head on my shoulder and let himself breathe. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge. This was about freedom, the kind that only comes when you stop trying to make broken people care. I started picking up consultation work on the side. Word got around through Dr. Grant Wallace, an old mentor from my community nurse training days. He still had a list of elderly patients around West Denver who couldn't travel far and didn't trust the hospitals. Every evening, I packed my beat-up canvas bag, gauze, stethoscope, thermometer, a few over-the-counter meds, and I walked through neighborhoods that felt forgotten, where the sidewalks cracked, and kindness came in the form of warm tea and a chair by the window. At first, I did it just to keep the lights on. But slowly, those quiet doorsteps became a kind of sanctuary. One evening, Mrs. Hendricks stopped by with peppermint tea and a flyer in hand. "Sienna," she said, "an old laundromat just came up for lease on Maple Street. Not much, but good plumbing and sunlight through every damn window." I stared at it like it was a dream I didn't know I had. Later that night, I showed it to Ethan. He put down his comic book and leaned in like a little grown man. "If you believe in it," he said, "I'll help. I already know how to scrape old paint." I laughed, for real this time. The next morning, I signed the lease. For weeks, we scrubbed, patched, painted. My co-worker, Monica Reyes, donated a used medicine cabinet. Dr. Wallace dropped off an old exam table. Ethan labeled supply jars and folded towels like it was sacred work. No sign, no front desk, no website. Just a space with warm light, a listening heart, and a little boy who believed in his mom more than the world ever did. I taped up a piece of paper by the door. Community care. Pay what you can. And that was the beginning of our healing. That June, almost a year after everything crumbled, I finally had just enough saved up to send Ethan to Timber Creek summer camp. 10 days, mountains, canoes, real trees instead of concrete. I wanted him to breathe, really breathe, to be a kid again, not a soldier in a war he never asked for. The morning we dropped him off, he hugged me tighter than usual, said nothing. But when the bus pulled away, and I saw him look back through the window, there was peace in his eyes. And I knew he was healing. Back at the clinic, I rearranged the shelves, changed the flowers. For the first time in forever, the silence didn't scare me. No little voice, no Lego bricks underfoot, just the soft hum of hope. I wasn't rich, but the bills weren't keeping me up at night anymore. And word was spreading. Elderly neighbors, single moms, a bakery owner who sent me gift cards after I treated her mother post-stroke. Then, one Sunday afternoon, there was a knock. I opened the door, and there stood Dr. Wallace, holding a weathered wooden box. "Got room for this?" he asked. Inside was an old brass stethoscope and a black and white photo of him in front of his first clinic. "This was mine," he said, "but it belongs to someone who understands that healing isn't just about medicine." I couldn't speak. I just held it, felt its weight. And somehow, it didn't feel heavy. That night, the camp counselor called, not with bad news, but pride. Your son helped another kid after a hiking fall, cleaned the wound, even taught the others how to wrap it. Honestly, he's more mature than some of our junior staff. I sat there in silence. Something uncoiled inside me, something that had been tight for too long. We were okay. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were becoming something stronger. One crisp fall afternoon, Ethan and I went for a walk at Lakeview Park. The air had that golden chill, leaves crunching beneath our boots, the smell of cinnamon drifting from a coffee cart nearby. It was our thing, a place we came to breathe after long weeks. Just mother and son, no drama, no ghosts. We were walking, sharing stories, Ethan telling me about some coin trick his classmate had learned, when I saw him, sitting alone on a bench under a bare tree, shoulders slouched, hair greying at the temples, clothes wrinkled, shoes worn out. Drew. I recognized him instantly, not because of his face, but the emptiness, the collapse. He looked up as we passed. Our eyes met, and for once, there was no smugness, no apology, just a hollow kind of gaze, like he was watching a life that no longer belonged to him. Ethan saw him too. He didn't flinch, didn't reach for me, just stared, then looked away. I gave a small nod. Not hello, not pity. Just a quiet, human acknowledgement of what once was and never will be again. We kept walking. Want to grab some ice cream on the corner? I asked. Ethan shrugged. Sure. And we didn't look back. Not because we hated him, but because we no longer needed him. That night, as we sat on the clinic steps eating our cones under the warm streetlight, Ethan turned to me. Mom, are you still mad at Dad? I paused, thought about it. I'm not mad, I said slowly. I haven't forgotten, but I'm not holding on to anything that still hurts. He nodded, didn't say much, just leaned his head against my shoulder, bigger now, but still mine. The breeze carried the scent of cinnamon again. The lights glowed soft against the pavement, and for the first time in years, I felt something deep in my chest settle. I wasn't the woman left behind anymore. I was the woman who walked forward. My story didn't begin in strength. It began in wreckage. But every scar I carry taught me how to build something better, not for revenge, not for approval, but for me and for the boy who never gave up on me.